Thank you so much. Good morning, namaste, shalom. These are all the phrases I learned of greetings. So, thank you so much for having me. I think very often we are told to be careful of the prayers that you make. I think a couple of months back, I requested Pastor TK to have a session on social injustice or human trafficking, and here I am facilitating my very request. So thank you so much. It's an honor to speak to all of you and to share thoughts and to pick brains. And that's something as a trainer I love doing. Now that I've given you a little clue that I'm a trainer to begin with, so I'm going to share my screen. I hope my screen is visible. I don't know if you're using your phones, but if you're not, and if I may encourage all of you to either scan this QR code or just open a new tab, say menti.com, and input this number on the column that shows ID number or something of that sort. If you could just do that. Either you are free to scan this QR code or just open menti.com and input the number. Please give me a thumbs up if you've done that. You're free to either scan this QR code, open your camera, scan it, and it'll take you to the link. Or you could just open a new tab, say menti.com, and give this number on menti.com. Where it says enter the code to join in, please input this code. Okay, please give me a thumbs up if you're able to do that. We'll just run through a few questions for us to begin and to start thinking about it. It's a very simple exercise. Okay, I see two people.
Think, is that the one that said that, have you ever stayed silent when you knew something was wrong?
We're on that side. Yes. So I'm going to stop this sharing and present the menti.com. One moment. Okay, thank you. I already see some of you answering.
Okay.
Yes, the first question is, have you ever stayed silent when you knew something was wrong? Oh, I love this. I was, but no more. Wow. Some years ago, okay. Sometimes it's hard to speak up. I hear you, yeah. Fear of retaliation. Okay, somebody is like, no, I speak out. Amazing. Yes, for a reason. I'm sure all of us have our reasons. Okay, let's move on to the next question. What's the most risk you have ever taken as a leader? I know this is such an open-ended question, but a one-word answer should do, I guess. Okay, stopping a project over principle. Unfortunately, I don't understand pictures and somebody tried drawing something. Okay, relocate to a foreign country, differing with my church council, fighting for juniors at personal expense. Yes. Fear of what people will say. So is that the risk that you've taken? Challenging racism. Please come to India. Please come to India. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. What does poverty mean to you? For those of you who are still joining, please feel free to scan this QR code or just open a link and say menti.com and you could input this code on it. So the question that we are at is, what does poverty mean? In your understanding, how do you define poverty? Lack of options? Spot on. Lack of options, inability to afford basic needs, state of mind, the basics of life in terms of food, shelter, basic amenities, less opportunities, mindset, not having enough to do what wants me to do, lack that is caused by the state of mind, no choice, undermining people's humanity, lacking something critical for personal welfare. Okay, let's move on. What usually stops leaders from acting? What usually stops you or a leader from doing something hatke. Hatke in Hindi means different or unique. So, as a leader, what stops you from acting on fear, politics? Fear is leading, reputation, risk. I mean, had I had my fellow citizens from India, I think all of them would have just opted for family. But this is good to see that family is not a hindrance. Okay, let's move on. Is neutrality possible in injustice? I will rephrase. When there is injustice, can you stay neutral? Or can you stay silent? I see one person that says yes, diametrically opposed. So, how do you differentiate neutral and being silent? Just scan the QR code or just open a new tab, say menti.com, and input this code, and it should take you to this. If I may request, James, can you please check your annotations? Looks like you're just doing rounds of drawing. Okay, not the easiest thing for me to do. Usually I do it with great cost or guilt. Okay, cost, I understand. Guilt? Okay, because you're staying neutral. Okay, I get it now. It depends if you want to get involved. Does it affect you? Does it change situation in your family? Okay, what if it does not change situation in your family? What if it does not affect you? Do you still take a stand in such situations? If it does not affect us, okay? Okay, thank you. What injustice have become normal in your communities? Around you, what are the kind of injustice or evils that you see that has become so common? Having to speak of India, I think rape has become such a common phenomenon in India. So what is an injustice that has become normal in your daily life, or people have immunity towards it? But no justice for everyone. Okay, inequality, neglect of the marginalized, classism, corruption, racism, suppression of dissenting voices, corruption, discrimination in employment, favoritism of friends, family, political affiliates, exploitation of foreigners for money. I hear you. Some people are more privileged than others, so there is inequality. Murder, abortion, impunity, abuse of children's rights. Okay, let's move on. When systems fail, ideally, who should respond? Whose responsibility is it when systems fail? The government? Those in charge? Yeah, can you define those in charge? Leaders and all who are concerned? Any concerned person? Okay. Government and the church? The general citizen, because they are the one who bear the brunt of it. Spot on. It's a collective responsibility, the church, leaders, government, civil society, movements, bodies. Okay. I think this is my last question. I relate the most with. Which of these statements is something that you relate with? I have avoided difficult truth to keep peace. I think this is what we do mostly in marriages, but yeah. I have seen exploitation but felt powerless. I have taken a risk to protect someone vulnerable. I have delayed action because timing was inconvenient. Okay? So, which is the statement that you mostly relate with? That's nice. to have more numbers on I've taken a risk to protect someone vulnerable. Okay, thank you so very much. Yes, thank you once again for participating and welcome everyone that has just joined us. We're deliberating on strategic courage. I wondered, looking at the title of Rahab, will anybody join? But thank you, thanks for everyone that has taken time to join. We just did a questionnaire just to understand where we stand and understand what are our thoughts or stand on various aspects. I want all of us to bear these questions in the back of our mind. These are something that we will discuss over the course of this 30 minutes or 40 minutes of presentation. I promise, TK, that I'll finish in 1 hour, but when it comes to a subject of your heart, and especially me being me, especially talking about such unique, unspoken aspects, is very difficult, but I'm going to try my best and keep up my word. So let's begin this journey. Here are two leaders that we're going to distinguish. One of them comes from a Canaanite background, and one of them is a Roman governor. One of them has taken, what's common in both of them is both of them have heard of this living God. Both of them knew, or they have heard of many miracles and testimonies that the so-called living God has done. And both of them do not have personal encounter yet. But given a situation, they had an opportunity, or they had a situation where they could make a decision. I think for one of them, the leader on my right, it was more evident that he had to make a decision. But for this lady on my left, I don't think anybody has asked her for it. I don't think she was even invited to this situation, or invited to this tussle that she could play a role. I don't think anybody has given her that opportunity, or even wanted to listen to what she thinks about it. But here she is. One of them have risked to protect the lives of these unjust or vulnerable people. One of them have taken a position to give in to what people think. One of them acted on the fear of God. One of them acted on the fear of men. Though he finds no unjust or no criminal record, or he finds this person innocent, yet he had to oblige because of what people would think, or because of fear of people, or because he wanted to please everyone else. I'm sure both of them were under political pressure. One of them became a part of the whole redemption story. It just breaks my heart to read in the Hall of Fame about this one lady that they say. They address her as a prostitute better. But while addressing this other man, unfortunately, he is just addressed with his titles. Something I do not like, but that's what it is. Any guesses on who these people could be? Any guesses on who these people could be? Um, yeah, please feel free to unmute and share, or you could just type in the chat box. Okay, Okay, you got a little lost in the bit of storytelling. Okay, someone says the lady is Rahab. Okay, any guesses on who the man is? Yes.
Joshua.
Thank you, Sheila. Is from India. Thank you so much for joining. Yes, Sheila. On my left is a story of Rahab. The man on my right is Pontius Pilate. Both of them had a situation, and like I said, I don't think anybody's invited Rahab to that team meeting of saying, we have a situation. Can you help us? I don't think she was invited to the party. Who had the first um, encounter of justifying whether Jesus is innocent or guilty or giving him a judgment. And here is Rahab, uh, extremely tactful in her negotiation skills. She made up a decision that's I while I was reading, I was wondering how could she even come up with such strategy. In a bit, you will see on all the titles that we could give to Rahab, but here is how Rahab, under political pressure, because there was a decree of the king that anybody sheltering these three spies will be killed, or they have to pay ransom for the three spies. And here is Pontius Pilate given an opportunity, and yet he chose to compromise and to be a people pleaser. I'm sure we might not be in situations of such high political demand or of high adverse nature, but I'm sure we have our own situations in some form or the other where we could, maybe like Rahab, you were not invited to the party, yet you could make a choice of standing. I don't know. Moving on. Rahab rises up. She ties this red scarlet robe while Pilate just washes away his hands. Too symbolic representation of their association with the injustice. Rahab, bold, faith. I mean, her extreme trust in God is just so challenging. I wish I have a faith like Rahab, because times of late, my season has been, God has been silent. I mean, I think we could do something, or we understand when a man is silent or a woman is silent, but to receive the silence of God, it's so dejecting. But yet, here is Rahab, who has only heard of God, who has never had an encounter with God. I don't think she's even heard the first hand experiences of God or testimonies of God, but yet, her faith in trusting that God was amazing. I felt Pontius Pilate, he did hear his wife advising him as well. But I think, have we become immune to not listening to our wives or spouses? Ever since the mistake of Adam, when he had to take a stand and be the man, he gave in to his wife. And here is Pilate, whose wife was on the right stand, but I think he just ignored her. And he gave in to what people would think or people would want. I was wondering, in today's context, and I know because I'm talking to all of you as leaders, if we have to give Rahab some titles, if we have to hire Rahab to our team, what would be some of these titles that we could give her? Extremely agile and change management catalyst, innovative problem solving, legacy architect, ethical intelligence, a person with bigger picture, bigger vision, results oriented, God fearing, definitely a strategy consultation or consultant, kingdom intelligence leader, purpose driven, convictional leadership, cross cultural competency. Wow. Don't you think if you knew nothing about Rahab's reputation or the past, would you hire Rahab in a go? But the bigger question is, do we, in our situations, in our sphere of influence, do we at any point in time act like Pontius Pilate? Or what does Pontius Pilate role in this modern day look like, or modern day leadership look like? Is compassion is compassion a part of our leadership? Can compassion coexist with the leadership or in decision making? One of my inspirations is Gary Hogan. He's a founder of IJM, and his book on the locus effect, this is what he says. When we think of global poverty, and especially in India, I can talk of India, we have done extremely well that poverty means hunger, disease, homelessness, illiteracy, dirty water, lack of education. And I would credit most of it to the missionaries. And even for the reason that you see me speaking here today, even in English, or standing the way with all the credentials that I have to credit to the missionaries. And they've done extremely well in eradicating poverty or addressing these issues of hunger, disease, illiteracy, dirty water, and even clothes in my context of culture. But little do we realize that the same poor are also exposed to violence, are exposed to other forms of exploitation, other forms of injustice that you may not see to the naked eye. And that's what Gary Hogan highlights. So let us shifting gears. In our context, in our culture, what does this poverty look like? What does vulnerability to violence look like? What does injustice look like? So let's just shift gears to understanding that human trafficking is just not the problem of the rich, or it does not exist only in the underdeveloping or developing nations. It exists very much in a developed nation like South Africa, UK, and other countries. And why? If you amalgamate all the resources, and I'm sure this is an unaccounted number, it is a $150 billion business. And when people say that women are here by choice, women offer themselves by choice, can you earn $150 billion because somebody wants to do it on her own deliberation? A question for us to think about. So what is human trafficking? Human trafficking, as per the definition, it involves an act, it involves means, and it involves a purpose. Right from the time of identifying to recruiting to transporting to harboring, and the amount of exploitation somebody goes through, all the coercion, the debt that somebody has to pay, the trust that somebody has invested into a person, and to the place of where she has to work, all of it is considered in the formula or definition of human trafficking. Like I said, it's just not in a developing nation like India or a developed nation like US. It happens across, and this is the statistics that shows of how the flow of trafficking, the routes that it all conspires into. Here is another picture that shows of the web of trafficking network. across the world, there are, again, I counted numbers, 40 billion people, no, 40 million that are trafficked for slavery. 40 million people across the world. While majority of them happen for labor and sex, but again, labor exploitation or sexual exploitation is just not one blanket where only it happens in prostitution houses or brothels. No, it has been evolving. And that's how you also see dark web, where you enter into a dark web and you name it and you get it. And the situations or stories that you hear of how a 10-month-old baby was offered or was demanded by a 40-year-old man. I don't think we can. Just a moment, my. Sorry, that was my mom. And as you see, what about the context of Africa? We do have a lot of routes that happen from the west to the east to the south, and I'm sure there are a lot of statistics, but here are some that I've just mentioned. I'm just letting it imbibe into our system. Human trafficking is an organized crime. It's an institutional crime. And I believe human traffickers are the most intelligent, tactful people. And they are the first that respond to any natural disaster. They are the ones that are tech savvy. They are the ones that are highly efficient. I'll give an example. Recently, I was in Nepal working on one of the case. I was not fighting with, of course, the system and the policies are so insensitive, but I also had to fight with my co-laborers, that is, organizations working in Nepal, to help them understand that we are all on the same boat and we all need to work on the best interest of these Ugandan women. And you know what? I could sit 2-3 days just dejected and very saddened by the fact that my very co-laborers are not in tandem to what we want to do for the best interest of the women, or the survivors, or the victims. And it made me wonder, and that's why human trafficking or injustice prospers, because they are in such tandem. They do things with no questions asked, even at the risk of their own life. But for us as an organization, as an institution of church, if we have to do something right, we need so many approvals and we need so many consents for it. And that's sadly the reason why an age-old profession or slavery like human trafficking has ever been evolving and growing. A $150 billion business. And I also want to stress the fact that I don't understand how people take children for so granted. I was very angered when somebody mentioned to me that she wants to have a child for herself without the man and without the fathership of a man in parenting the child. I mean, is that why we have children? Do we have children for our own selfish desire that, oh, you have accomplished something in your life, or womanhood or manhood? Or is parenting a call deeper than that? And I'll tell you why. Look, we will discuss that in the root causes, but again, something for all of us to think about. So what is human trafficking? Human trafficking involves exploitation, involves smuggling, it involves violence, crime. It's a network. Human trafficking is the second largest organized crime next to drugs and terrorism. Drugs and arms, I guess, and terrorism comes as a third. Like I said in the definition, it involves recruitment, harboring, transportation, and one of the critical important ingredient is force. It is done against their will. And this is what I believe. And I felt convicted even more when an IPS officer himself, a Hindu IPS officer himself, says there is no prostitute woman, there is no prostitute child. They are not born to do that. They are forced to do it. And as we see over here, some of the reasons why trafficking or how these victims are recruited, it's because they have had a childhood trauma. It's because their definition or understanding of love is kind of distorted. It's because they are lonely, they do not have a friend to share, they do not have a healthy hobby, and there is a political suppression or oppression that's happening. It's also because there is a dysfunctional family life. So there are different components on why and how a person is recruited to be a victim. And what are the different industries that this offers in? Like I said, while sex trafficking, labor trafficking, and in a country like India, we also have bride trafficking, child marriages, begging is also related to human trafficking, organ trafficking is also one of the mafias that we deal in India. However, across the world and even in India, sex trafficking and labor trafficking are the major reasons why or how trafficking prospers. And these are some of the industries where it happens. It could be a small bar, it could be a salon, it could be in the name of escort services. It could be in a cotton factory. It could also be in a restaurant where somebody is working without their documents. So victims are recruited just not from the abused families, they're also recruited from conflict areas. So whenever there is a war, whenever there is a natural disaster, it just breaks my heart, anxious on the increase of the number of trafficking cases. So conflict areas are a potential ground for trafficking recruiting. And then it's also when people try to flee on terms of migration. But what is the world doing about it? Are there no organizations working on it? As per this slide that you see, UN supports many organizations to work to raise their voice. There are so many reports, TIP reports that happen. There are a lot of investigations. There is a lot of wealth invested in battling this social injustice of human trafficking. It's a conscious choice that I'm just skimming through these aspects of human trafficking because if you want to learn more, we are happy to facilitate more in-depth training or sessions. But today the agenda was to pick your brains on what is human trafficking and what is this injustice and why are we still battling with this injustice. I can date back slavery or human trafficking to the time of Abraham. That means some thousand. And also, if Jesus has walked on this earth and if he has redeemed all kinds of injustice, if he has redeemed humanity, my question was, why does it still exist? Why are we still battling with this institutional social injustice? I am strongly convicted and injustice of human trafficking, the solution for it is found, of course, in the cross, definitely in the cross, but it is the church that has to rise up to mitigate that gap, to bridge that gap in bringing the redemption into these very roots or every aspect of human trafficking. And I'll share that a little more. So, what are the actual factors affecting human trafficking? People could say it's a poverty, it's unemployment, it's because unsafe migration, because there is a war in my country, or it's because of the government. Some of us that might understand a little more can say, oh, because there is demand. All of that we see are just the surface level problems. The actual issues are, and according to the work that we do and the research and the analysis that we have done and the interventions that we have done, this is what I strongly believe. It's these children that are unmonitored or unsupervised by parents. Children that are given birth and left to parents or grandparents to take care of them. Children that do not, I mean, one of my strangest learning of visiting East Africa has been that there is no pre-primary intervention in education. And that really bothered me, and it bothers me even now, to just witness children being left on the road with no formal education or no education at all. So unmonitored children, school dropouts, they drop out of the school because she's a single mother and she's not able to fetch for the whole family. Then they go on to pick up some kind of a work. And also lack of sex education, teen pregnancy, single mothers. And my question, I'm sorry, I have to be a little brutal over here. If a man is able to donate his sperm to a woman, why is he not able to father the child? And where did parenting become a sole responsibility of one partner? And that's a vicious cycle that we see on why human trafficking, or what is the actual root cause. And what am I talking about? In brief, it is the broken family system. A question to all of us. When was the last time you've ever made a change in your life? Change in your lifestyle, change in your food habit, change the time you wake up, change in your routine. When is the last time that you ever made a change in your life? And was it easy? And did you enjoy the process? And did you do it because you loved those changes? And my question is basically for us to think, being in a healthy, sound mind and being in a healthy environment, I'm assuming which all of us are mostly, at least 80% or 90%. If we as a human struggle to make one change in our life, imagine a victim of human trafficking. When people say, oh, she could have run away, maybe she could have just fought with her trafficker, maybe she could have called somebody for help, maybe she could have gone to police station. It is much deep, just not with the system of politics or the governance or family system, but also deep childhood trauma or abuse that a person has gone through. And like I said, people very easily, very comfortably blame it on the women or blame it because everybody is there, I'm only watching pornography because it's available. And that's what my friend told me. I'm only watching pornography and I'm doing no harm. I'm only watching it. but we live in such a demand supply mechanism. There's no way something can be produced if there is no demand. And we live in such an instant gratification generation. And I want all of us to be sensitive to this fact that it is the very law of demand that is leading to supply or leading to human trafficking. When people say, oh, we should maybe legalize prostitution, or we should just legalize, women's right, prostitute rights. Can you imagine? Can you just imagine? Just because they need to supply new faces, new bodies, young teenage girls, how much of a demand or exploitation it can inflate to. So why are we even talking about it? I'm convicted that human trafficking thrives in this very aspect that Jesus or God has asked us to be cautious about. Lust of the eye, lust of the flesh, pride of life. Human trafficking, as simply put, is these three phenomena. Pornography, sexual exploitation, the pleasure somebody derives from harassing somebody. All of it. In the name of easy, quick money, how exploiters go to any extreme. Because why? Because the risk is so less. Because she's a single mother, nobody cares about her. Nobody would even go and report her. It was so heartbreaking for me to learn that some of the women that we have rescued and repatriated, their parents or their family does not even know where this lady is. Or they tell the family that they're in Dubai, yet they're in India. Nobody cares. These are like unaccounted numbers of life. But something that really shook me is in Isaiah 61:1, and I want to read this loud and strong, and if maybe you could read it as well. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives, and release from darkness for the prisoners. Maybe I can talk a little of Africa, but I can talk definitely from the Indian context. We Indians, we Indian Christians, we the Church of India have done extremely well in the first thing, good news to the poor. And that's what Gary Hogan also says. We do such phenomenal activities in reaching out, in bathing the poor, in giving them blankets, in doing food drives, donating food, donating clothes. But we as a church, I'm wondering if we have become so lost in the first phrase of this whole verse that we ignored the other aspects of binding up the brokenhearted, to proclaiming freedom to those in darkness and freedom and prisons. What are we doing about it? Is our leadership convenient? I mean, if the church says my responsibility is to spread the gospel, sure. Who is going to spread gospel to those in the brothels? Who is going to spread gospel to those in the brick factories? A question for all of us to think about. Growing up, again, we're shifting gears now again. growing up, when people asked me, where is the place that you would go to live as a missionary? And frankly, I knew nothing about Africa. I definitely knew nothing about Africa. But always and always, whenever somebody asked me, where would you serve as a missionary? I blindly said Africa. And I think I forgot about it. I didn't even do anything about it. But maybe 15 years later, when I receive a call from one of the partner organizations that here is a victim from Uganda, can you do something about it? I'm a person that believes and trusts in partnership, in collaboration, and I love networking. So it is this very confidence that I said, okay, we'll see what we can do. Even before we realized how deep this ship was, we've had 7 women under our care. God literally opened our window to the present need in India to Africans that are being exploited day in and out. Women that are stripped naked in the streets of Delhi. Somebody that is punched with a screwdriver on her thigh because the engagement was for one man, yet 4 men have raped her in a car. And this is an unaccounted statistics that I say always, that it's not an exaggeration that there are at least 10% of every city's population is African. There are African shops, African kitchen, African salons, and whole community filled with African. And recently I visited a university where there are 1,500 African students studying in different cadres in the university. It's a very small private university. 1,500 students. God channelized my heart for Africa. I didn't have to go somewhere else, but He just opened our window to what is the present need in India. And many people told me, Chrysolite, why are you wasting your life on Africans who, I'm so sorry. And this is with, I don't say this with condemnation, but I also say this with an attitude of forgiveness, that, my Indian fellow beings, when I said, somebody has to come to work to India on racism, we are highly discriminative beings. Every person in India could have been exposed to discrimination, and that's for sure, right? So people were like, why work with Africans? A missionary that came to India to serve Indians and India, she's like, Chrysolite, why Africa work on Indian women? But I just thank God for the conviction that He's given us, that every person deserves a second chance. I am a sum of mistakes that I've done, sins that I've done. Yet here I am because God has given me a second chance. If I am given a second chance, I believe that every person has to have a second. If every person, that also includes my African sisters and brothers. And that's a conviction that God has beautifully laid on our heart. And also from the scripture of Peter, where Peter's good news was not just for Jews, but also for non-Jews. And we went ahead. Every year we tell to our team, or we discuss that, this is going to be the last year we will do the shelter home, or maybe we will close this time, or maybe we will take a break. And I think there are zillion miracles that God has done through this initiative, just because we chose to stand and be His hands and feet. It's been an incredible journey. Some of our interventions, right from rescuing them to offering them shelter, we did lose one of the persons for cancer and HIV. He raised a whole army of volunteers and expat volunteers. I'm sure because had it been Indian women working for serving the African, I think it comes with a lot of discrimination. But I'm amazed on how a whole army of expat women rise up, do different initiatives. They take up the initiatives to support in providing skill empowerment, in offering counseling, in doing Bible study, different initiatives. And it's been such a joy to witness some of these women go back. As you see here, I'm sure this is a collage of pictures, but as you see here, she's gone back to become a survivor champion in Rwanda. Along with Salvation Army, she was sharing her testimony and journey and advocating for prevention of human trafficking in Rwanda. And at the same time, God has placed us in positions of influence. We did a symposium in Uganda. We have met with the different stakeholders from the Kenyan government and Ugandan government. God has just given us an opportunity to amplify our intervention. And I say this with utmost humility, because it's not been easy. It's not just been easy. It is costing our personal life. It's costing our work, finances. It's a huge, huge price to pay. And I'm sure my team members relate or second the same. It's been a huge price to pay. In 2022-2023, when we first received the Ugandan case, I ran from pillar to post just to find a shelter for one of the highly advanced HIV victim. I struggled. I've approached even Christian organizations. Every day you go back with such agony. Why? What can we do? Even Christian shelter homes would not give us a year. They said, we need all of this documentation. We need all of these policies to be followed. But yet, God opened and led us to one Hindu humanitarian who understood that every person's life is important. She knew that this is an adult woman, she's a Ugandan woman, yet she chose to provide shelter for us. And that's been the transformational moment for all of us as an organization. That paved ways to what we are trying to do in India. Imagine if that one person didn't trust us. I'm sure we would have felt very dejected and wouldn't have done any of this. What am I trying to say? In times of adversity, even when you're not called to be a part of this conversation, and because you know that this is injustice, can we take a stand? And like I said, church is the only solution to human trafficking. No matter how many chrysalites, no matter how many red rope movements or organizations come, no matter how much funding goes into these NGOs, unless the church rises up, unless the church responds to this calling to work on the issue of human trafficking, to work on these root causes, we can't make a dent on it. And that's the truth that I know. So today my question to all of you, as a leader, as a pastor, as a scholar, or as just an individual person, as an organization, as a Bible Institute professor, what can you do about it? Definitely, I'm not asking for all of you to start an initiative on human trafficking. No, that's not the solution again. But there are these root causes that you see. What can we do about those root causes? Broken families. When I was in Kenya, I had an opportunity to do a mission trip to Maasai, one of the Maasai tribes. And then I was asked to speak to the youngsters. And I told them. And my friend was upset with me afterwards, but I told them, hey, you know what? Purity is great. If you can keep yourself from engaging in any sexual activity before your marriage is the best. And that's what God wants us to do. But if you can't, please use precautions. Please use condom. And that's what I told them. Because I know the very fact that these youngsters are going to try and explore. So as a person that knows, or as a good mother or a father or a well-wisher, if I know that my child is gonna make a mistake, for sure, what do? Should I just condemn them? Should I just judge them? Or should I just ask them to be a little cautious? And what is better, to bring a child without your consent, or to abort the child, or to raise a child with no parental discipline? What's the best? And that's why in our intervention, we do night outreaches, and in the night outreach, we offer these women condoms. And one of my colleagues was really upset with me. Chrysolite, why are you offering condoms? It's like you're promoting the whole work that they're doing. I'm like, no, what can I do? If I bring all of them out, do I have the capacity to offer them a job? So what can I do? And I also want to stress the fact that, unfortunately, church has become one of the brewing areas for hypocrisy. The moment somebody enters, and if you know that there is a, I don't like to use this word, but sexually exploited woman, or a teen pregnant woman in your church, or in your college, or in your organization, how would you react to her? Another situation that I am in at the moment, one of these ladies that we've been friends with for the past 6 years, she's from Uganda. So we've been trying, we've been really, working with her to dream of going back to home, because some of these women don't dream of going back home, because all that they see is the push factor. Factors pushing them to stay back in India, earn money, and send them home. So we've been working with her and trying to do our best, just be with her. And all of a sudden she calls me up and says, Chrysolite, I am pregnant. And you know what? She knows, and I know, that she is HIV positive. Yet she chose, it was a willful decision to become pregnant. I'm like, Lord, I was definitely disheartened, angered, frustrated with God. And yet I have two of my friends who are trying all in their capacity to conceive, and yet they're not conceiving. And here is a Ugandan woman. I can't imagine a child being raised in the streets of India with a foreign and African nationality. How will she go to school? What is the identity she'll carry? What is the name of her father? And all of these are so important in our Indian context. So I'm like, Lord, how? Why? What do I do? Do I just disown her? Do I just condemn her? Do I just do nothing to do with her? But we chose to do her baby shower. It was very hard. Even while preparing for it, while traveling to visit her, it was very hard for me personally. But we chose to celebrate her choice, just be with her in that moment. So my question to all of us today is, what can you do in the face of injustice? Not when you're offered, when it knocks your door, like Pontius Pilate, but even when it does not knock your door. But now that you heard of it, what can you do about it? Some of the interventions that you as a leader can do. In Amos, it talks about how justice and righteousness could flow like a river. I don't know if you as pastors you talk about that or not, if you dwell more on it or not as just a believer of Jesus. But today my question, what can you do for righteousness and justice to flow like a river in your sphere of influence? Yeah, you might not have the power to stop Israel and Iran war. Definitely no. Maybe you don't have the power to stop all the erratic decisions that Trump can make. But in your sphere of influence, what can you do? Can you imagine a woman of no background or a bad reputation, a prostitute? She went on to become a part of Jesus' genealogy. I'm sure God has placed you in much greater spheres of influence. What can you do for righteousness and justice to flow like a river in your sphere of influence? If you want to learn more, we're happy to associate and do more sessions and deliberate more in depth. But today was just to understand what injustice is and understand what your role or my role can be. I don't know if you know of Lausanne movement, but Lausanne movement is doing their chapter of conference on freedom and justice in South Africa, in Cape Town, from the 10th to 13th of August. If you are someone that wants to learn more, do more, join hands and bring more collaboration, here is an opportunity for all of us to jump on to deliberating more of this on freedom and justice. So just wanted to share that. And as I conclude, transformational leadership is not measured by the titles, by your awards, by the platforms, by the credentials that you carry, by the applause that you receive, but by the courage to protect human dignity when silence is safer, easier, and convenient. With that, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm happy to answer any questions and happy to be challenged. I'm sure because some of these are not very pleasant or accepted into our ears. So I'm happy to answer and be challenged by each one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Christella. We really appreciate your insight and presentation, challenging us, and thank you for the amount of information you share with us, and also challenging us not just to listen, but we ought to start considering what we should do within our circle of influence. So thank you for those word of challenge. As usual, we normally give time for people to make comment and to possibly question, or maybe they have a view they want to share. Please, friends, here is the subject matter. Please, the floor is open for you to make your view known in form of question or in form of contribution towards this subject matter. Thank you. The floor is open. Okay. Pastor Israel, please go for it. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, our speaker. And Daddy, thank you so much for this site that most of us are not somehow looking into most of the time. And sometimes we seem to look at it in a form that is a business of the women. But I want to talk because of one experience I have as far back as 2008. A lady ran to the church and she was crying that, Pastor, I can't go home. Now here is the night hour and she couldn't go home. So I asked her a question and she told me our own father disvirgined all of her sisters, and he started the attempt on her, and then she ran out of the church, of the house, and the only place she has hope in is the church. And I think she's still in the second year in the university. So all I did is just to find a place for her to sleep that night. Then we organized a place for her to stay. Then we managed to get her sponsor to finish her education. But what surprised us was that she came back with some details about their dad, that the issue wasn't just like trying to use them as a pleasure, that the man is an occult man. So I look at it in the area of sometimes we have this thing as a result of cultism. The cultism that goes on around us is one of the way they get something. I don't know whether they get empowered. I think that is the real truth, that they get empowered when they mess up with this lady, they use them and they defile them, and it's one of their source of power. So I don't know if our speaker can look into that aspect, if they have had experience like that, and then, because what she has said is challenging, and there's definitely in the little side of mine, I think we have to wake up to do something about it. I'm really challenged today. Thank you so much.
Thank
you
you
so much. Sorry, can I respond?
Yeah, go ahead. Maybe because of time, can we allow Dr. Sam to make his comment briefly, and then you take it on.
Thank you very much. What a wonderful presentation that we've had. Obviously, here at Eswatini, a small country, also a high rate of poverty. A lot of trafficking is happening, but this is the challenge. I don't know how you work it out. When they are trafficked into your country, in most cases that is ignored, because sometimes you don't even know where they're coming from. Sometimes you are limited by language and whatever. You can't poke into people's the things or businesses or whatever. How do you navigate? How do you really find those? This is where I think the collaboration is very important in terms of the knowledge, how we deal with it. And then number two, I missed the Louisiana, is it a meeting or a conference? How do you join, or is it online, or is physical in Cape Town? I think I missed that one. I would love to learn more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sister, go ahead. You can address the two. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, a huge applause to you for facilitating and finding a sponsor for her, and in the first scenario of what you've done is phenomenal. And this is something that the church does not believe in, but something that I strongly believe has to be done, and I give you a reason why. Why haven't you thought about registering complaint? Lot of injustice perpetrates because there are no complaints, because the system does not know what's happening, because it's taken, especially in India, right? We believe silence is gold. We believe, all the trauma that you go through can die with you, not realizing that trauma is, or abuse by a man could be generational, and it has an impact on the children. So my first question is, can we register a complaint against the man, against the perpetrator? Can he come into the system of justice on earth, right? That's what I would say. Because the moment you keep silent, silence is contagious. Silence is I'm struggling to find a word, but it's like this amoeba that can just grow or explode the more we appreciate silence. So that's why our anthem has always been break the silence. When you break the silence, I believe the chains are broken. I believe there is freedom when there is silence that is broken as well. So the first thing is to encourage registering complaints. And to answer the second question about prevention, prevention is far, far better than everything else. The amount of trauma healing or the best medicine you could give, prevention. And that's what I'm calling all of you to do as well. How can we prevent unsafe migration? How can we prevent teen pregnancies? How can we prevent single mothers? Can we challenge our men to be responsible fathers? Can we create a generation of godly fathers? And we're working on a curriculum on it. That can we rise up a generation of godly fathers? And I think that there is a dearth of need for it. So how can we raise up a generation of godly fathers, right? So prevention, conversation. One of our areas of work is also prevention, where we go to schools, colleges, talk about these issues. The more you talk about it, the less impact or influence it has. But the more it is kept as a taboo topic or ignored, in India, at least our parents don't even talk about any of these aspects. They would say that it is bad, but nobody would explain why is it bad. Do you pay attention to what your children use? Your children use mobile phones, but is it guarded or guided by parental monitoring? So what are some of the mechanisms, or how can we play around the very technology that is available to protect our own children? Games, the online videos that kids watch. Do we pay attention to what is going into their system? Right? So prevention is what the call of the need is. And the very other aspect that I forgot to mention is whenever NGOs make interventions or churches make interventions, and especially in Eastern Africa that I've traveled, I've noticed how they come up with trainings on salon, come up with training on sewing, they come up with training on beauty products. Come on, yeah. Not everybody is meant to become a businessman or a woman. Not everybody can do sewing. Not everybody is interested to work with their hands. I know of an example where this lady is extremely talented. She came to India on a scholarship visa. She's very passionate to study. And it's been 1.5 years. She's struggling to restart her life because the organization can offer a seed money for the business, but they can't offer her a laptop, which is her need. So are we going with our own offerings, our own package that I have to offer you, or are we sitting with women or victims to learn on what they need? So that's what I would say. Prevention is the key. Speaking about it, skill empowerment is the key. Education is the key. Can any of you work on reforming the education system in your own countries? Can we challenge our education systems? So that's what I would say.